So CAIR has released another one of their bullying surveys, and the media is eagerly reporting on it without having actually read it.
According to a recent survey, Muslim students are experiencing increased bullying in middle and high school. The Council on American Islamic Relations California released their findings earlier today. Nearly 50% of Muslim students who were surveyed reported being bullied because of their faith. That's an increase of 10% from last year. One of the most glaring statistics is that 25% of those surveyed reported that the bullying came from a teacher or caretaker at their school.
Teachers, administrators, or classmates normalize their faith-based bullying of Muslim students. School bullying is not merely an inconvenience and should not be a rite of passage for students.
CAIR California says Islamophobia is being fueled by portrayals of Muslims in the media, travel bans, and remarks made by some politicians.
For instance, this headline from the Times of San Diego states 56% of Muslims in California schools feel unsafe. And this article from KPBS in San Diego says more than half of California Muslim students feel unsafe at school. But that is not what the survey says. The number of people who participated is only about 700. Keep this in mind when looking at CAIR's percentage claims like 50% don't feel safe at school, or 41% say they've experienced bullying at school, because that works out to be only around 300 to 400 people. A microscopic percentage of the total student population. But this is not just a random selection of California students. In a previous survey, CAIR tells us that in addition to emails sent to mailing lists used by Muslim Americans, social media platforms were used to advertise the survey. Platforms included Instagram and Twitter. The survey was also promoted through paid Facebook ads targeted at individuals in the United States who follow a number of Islamic organizations on Facebook. These Islamic organizations might be the Muslim Student Association, or ICNA, or the American Muslims for Palestine, or CAIR itself. This is a very concentrated segment of the population. CAIR is polling their friends. And while we're on the subject of friends, let's do like the media and look at the pictures in CAIR's report. And that's Hussein Alouche. There's Bassem El-Kara. This might be Zara Bilou, but that is definitely Malcolm X. CAIR's report coincides with the creation of phony centers and phone hotlines.
The Council of American Islamic Relations and Attorney General Rob Bonta will announce the opening of a new anti-bullying center in Anaheim. The Center for the Prevention of Hate and Bullying would focus on hate crimes targeting the Black, African, Arab, Middle Eastern, Muslim, and South Asian communities.
New at 6, a new study showing Islamophobia at California public schools is on the rise. Here in the Central Valley, advocates say Muslim students are bullied, sometimes by teachers.
USSAM, last name is Alouche, A-Y-L-O-U-S-H, and I'm the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of the Council on American Islamic Relations. It needs to be addressed in a comprehensive way. Therefore, the idea of establishing a center, the Center for the Prevention of Hate and Bullying, came up. The idea was to come and bring together a collaborative effort from within CAIR's various departments, within CAIR LA, CAIR Los Angeles area office, to address the issues from a legal perspective, through an advocacy perspective, policy, information, education, and through building partnerships and coalitions as needed to address hate that targets various communities. As we know, when there is hate, it's not only one community that is targeted. We stand together, and the only way we can do it is to do it in a systemic, persistent way, and that is the idea behind the Center for the Prevention of Hate and Bullying. With that said, we're very honored and very glad that our Attorney General, the State Attorney General, Rob Bonta, is with us to help us welcome the launching of this important center, and please join me in welcoming him.
Honored to be here, Rob Bonta, California Attorney General, and let me just thank CAIR California, CAIR LA, and let me say congratulations as the California Attorney General to support communities, to help keep them safe, to make sure that they are not the targets of hate or hate crimes. And that means working with them, as I am today. And so when it comes to addressing hate, there is no... Today, I heard some very powerful stories. They were powerful, they were personal, they were often painful. Stories of young people being bullied because of how they look or how they pray. Stories of victims of hate crime who weren't treated as victims at all and didn't have the hate crime investigated as a hate crime. And so there is much importance in the dialogue and discussion. I learned something new with every one of these conversations that I have with community members who are impacted by the forces of hate. I'm doing a statewide set of roundtables with communities impacted to hear, to listen, to learn, and to be a better partner and a better supporter. And here again, we've identified ways to move forward. We have a Bureau of Children's Justice in the California Department of Justice, which we will be activating to help support children in our schools, in elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and college, potentially as well, who are victims of Islamophobia, to make sure that we're providing the support that's necessary. We can issue best practices around how to best honor individuals' civil rights as well as treat others with dignity and respect, and we'll use that authority of the Department of Justice as well. So, in times like these, we realize that hate is not new. It's something that's been with us. Ways forward to push back against the forces of hate and to identify ways that we can work with one another with greater dignity, greater respect, greater understanding, and that we can celebrate our diversity because it is our strength. It's one of the great things that makes California the great state that it is, our beautiful diversity. And in these times, I often think about that Martin Luther King Jr. statement Letter from a...
The Center for the Prevention of Hate and Bullying is CAIR. It's located in one of CAIR's LA offices, his office, and it's from here that they will network with other groups. CAIR does not mention Jews, to find friends who will aid them in any potential protests or pressure campaigns. Bullying is so important to CAIR that they have devoted an entire division of the organization to its prevention. Well, this is ironic because CAIR has been hunting Americans, particularly white people, on TV for the past 3 years. Contrast CAIR's undefined virtual threat with real-world harm, such as losing your job. Every month, like machine work, CAIR denounces someone or tries to pressure them out of a job. It is uncanny how consistent they are in calling for the firing or arrest of people who have misspelled a Starbucks cup, wore costumes, said the N-word, have a noose, written graffiti, criticized Rashida Tlaib, or said something on social media. And it's been going on like this for years. Meanwhile, in Chicago, CAIR is starting a 24-hour anti-bullying hotline.
Today, the organization launched a new anti-bullying effort called Healsters.org to put a stop to what organizers say is an uptick in bullying cases. Organizers with CAIR Chicago say they're hoping Healsters.org will put a stop to this. If a student is being bullied and needs to speak to a professional for support, there is a 24/7 hotline. There is also a tool to help students file grievances if they feel they are being bullied.
This initiative, Healsters, is going to provide tools for all of the above. There will be cultural awareness training presented to schools in order to help avert situations that we have seen.
A Chicago activist group says many Muslim students have been the victims of bullying because of their race and religion.
It was not my choice to be subjected to discriminatory remarks against me and many other groups of people.
I'm here today to hold these people accountable for the pain they put Ibrahim through and to make sure this does not happen to another innocent child like my brother.
Aisha Hassan says her 16-year-old brother Ibrahim was bullied at his New Lenox High School for being Muslim and passed away from a self-inflicted gunshot wound last month. CAIR's Ahmed Rahab says acts of bullying need to end, and that's why his organization created Healsters to help stop the suffering.
There's a hotline that's presented to students. Perhaps we can avert another tragedy. If a student cannot speak to a parent, a family, or a counselor, or school faculty or colleagues, perhaps they can talk to professionals that understand and are there for them.
Additionally, they will continue to try to gain a foothold in the public school system with their training programs, courses, and textbooks.
More ethnic studies, anti-Islamophobic trainings.
It takes the schools inviting us in, allowing us to educate.
This is yet another attempt by CAIR to penetrate the public school system, and this is very similar to what they tried unsuccessfully a few years ago in San Diego.
CAIR, known for being an advocacy organization that shills for radical Islamists, partnered with the San Diego Unified School District on a so-called anti-bullying campaign. What resulted from this campaign was significant changes in curriculum that pushes Islamic beliefs coming from an organization that has ties to terror. With me now, President and Chief Counsel of the Freedom of Conscience Defense Fund, Charles Lamondre.
The district's own statistics from this past fall don't justify singling out Muslims for protection.
There were only 7 incidents of bullying in the entire city, which represented 130,000 students. And of that 7 instances of bullying, they didn't even break it down by religious affiliation. So we don't know if any of those students were Muslims.
According to the Associated Court transcript, this is one of the texts CAIR wants to use in the school system, a justification for the terror attacks of 9/11. And this should not surprise us. CAIR wants schools to stop teaching that Islam has anything to do with 9/11.
Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace, everyone. This is Hussein Shabazz, National Research Coordinator at CAIR National. Today's topic is about CAIR's school resource document. 2 weeks ago, CAIR issued a school resource document.
CAIR's recommendations can be summed up succinctly. Islam has nothing to do with 9/11.
CAIR designed the school resource
CAIR's reliable sources include the Southern Poverty Law Center, Al Jazeera, CNN, and CAIR themselves.
Reliable sources. For example, avoid using inaccurate and inflammatory terms such as Islamic terrorists, jihadists, or radical Islamic terrorists. We wouldn't want that with any other faith. We wouldn't want, saying Christian we don't hear Christian terrorists, for example, in classroom, right? And so it's a double standard, and we wouldn't want that with any other faith, right? And so there's nothing Islamic about terrorism, right? There's nothing radical about Islam, and so it's really important to stay away from these terms because it brings up a lot of the old Orientalist tropes about Islam and Muslims and associates it with terrorism. Number 9, when discussing the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, the invasion of Afghanistan, Iraq, the Iraq War, and Guantanamo Bay also include the discussion of bigotry and hate crimes that impacted Sikh Americans, Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, and other minorities in the days, months, and years after the attack.
9/11 is treated like a natural disaster, not a declaration of war, and it had nothing to do with Islam.
It was hate, not religion, that motivated the horrible acts of September 11th.
Recall for a moment the UK's Trojan Horse scandal. The Trojan Horse affair refers to a scandal involving claims of an alleged conspiracy to Islamize several schools in Birmingham, England.
Secretary Michael Gove.
With your permission, Mr. Speaker, I should like to make a statement on schools in Birmingham. Keeping our children safe and ensuring our schools prepare them for life in modern Britain could not be more important. It is my department's central mission. Allegations made in what has become known as the Trojan Horse letter suggested that children were not being kept safe in Birmingham schools. Ofsted and the Education Funding Agency have investigated those allegations. Their reports and other relevant documents have today been placed in the library of the House. Let me set out their findings and my actions. Ofsted states that head teachers reported an organised campaign to target schools in order to alter their character and ethos, with a culture of fear and intimidation. Head teachers who had a record of raising standards reported they had been marginalised or forced out of their jobs. One school leader was so frightened about speaking to the authorities that a meeting had to be arranged in a supermarket car park. Ofsted concluded that governors are trying to impose and promote a narrow, faith-based ideology in what are non-faith schools, specifically by narrowing the curriculum, manipulating staff appointments, and using school funds inappropriately.
Plot or no plot, conspiracy or no conspiracy, people have been acting
with common objectives in mind that are unacceptable to be common objectives in a modern, progressive and liberal education system in Birmingham or anywhere else in the country.
There is a great deal of evidence to support these claims, like the WhatsApp exchanges between members of the Park View Brotherhood.
The colonial blood is very difficult to get rid of. Colonial blood that they have within them, these white people prejudice, it's very difficult to get rid of that very quickly. So they still think they rule half the world. That very good. White children, white British English children, are now achieving the lowest. Because these fellows are lazy. Exactly. They're lazy. Thank you very much. Very cool. Thank you very much. And they don't want to accept that. With my eyes closed, our women are much, much better consciously in the heart than anyone. A man can be the father and the leader of the family. A woman can also be the leader of the family in the house. In the house. So she looks after the house, she looks after the children, and she is to be respected for what she does, not treated as a slave. But the regular punishment may be, a jail term, maybe even expulsion from the country. So they're thrown out? Yeah, so they're thrown out because the Quranic concept is that anybody who causes disruption in the community, even if you put them in prison, from prison they can continue to cause disruption as well.
And then they must come out of prison also.
So that's right. So the best thing to do is to actually exile them from the country.
To throw them out?
Yeah, so that the community can remain solid and united. So if an English Jew goes to Israel and kills people, he's welcomed back to England with open arms.
They are saying they will come and be terrorists in this country then?
Yeah, and if a Muslim or any other person goes and fights for their people and comes back, they're classed as terrorists.
But what is this boy doing that is wrong?
In their eyes, the fact that he's gone there to fight, they say he's supporting terrorists.
My name is Hussam Elush and I'm with the Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR. Anti-Muslim bigotry is not merely the product of the Trump administration's divisive rhetoric. It is a reflection and continuation of my country's long history of government-sponsored and approved racism and abuse targeting various communities, starting with Native Americans, African Americans, and other minorities, Chinese, Italian, Mormon, Catholic, Jewish, Japanese, Latino, and now Muslim Americans. Islamophobia is the product of a reorganized and rebranded white nationalism.
It is a matter of race. It is the crisis of race. It is the fact that white people have certain privilege and entitlement that they can do anything and they can get away with.
White supremacy was the recipe of the founding of this country. It's not some ill that came along later. Racism is the default state of affairs in America for anyone who's not white.
Get uncomfortable, white people. Get uncomfortable, white people.
At one time I was in tears, and the other times I could have, if I even so much as saw someone of a Caucasian hue, I would roll over and choke.
To be honest with you, I don't know what my family was doing during the civil rights movement. And I think that would go to say that they were being complicit.
The bill would practically end the use of the New York Times 1619 project in public school classrooms. A woman from Waterloo created the project, which won a Pulitzer Prize. It reframes U.S. history through the lens of slavery and its impact on the nation for today. The group's communications director says that it has an interest in the project being taught because racism impacts all minorities in America.
We all have to educate ourselves about the reality, about the history of our nation and the role white supremacy and racism played in the history of our nation.
Isn't the public school system messed up enough without including the Council on American Islamic Relations?